What's up? See y'all made it. So y'all ready? Welcome to Tales from the Block.
This happened back in 2012, when I was 28 and working as a forest ranger in Blackwood National Forest, a dense stretch of pine and cedar in northern Maine. The job was straightforward: patrol trails, check campsites, monitor wildlife, and make sure hikers didn't get lost or start fires. It was peaceful most days, just me, my coworker Tom, and the endless trees. But one day, everything changed, and I still can't shake what happened. Tom was my best friend on the job. He was 32, a wiry guy with a quick laugh and a knack for spotting animal tracks. We'd been rangers together for 3 years, covering the same 50-mile sector of Blackwood. In late October, the forest was quiet, tourist season was over, and the air had that sharp, cold bite. On October 22nd, Tom went out to check a remote trail near Deer Hollow, a rugged area with steep ravines and thick underbrush. He was supposed to radio in by 4 p.m. to confirm he was heading back to the ranger station. The call never came. By 5 p.m., I was worried. Tom was never late. I tried his walkie-talkie, but all I got was static. I reported it to our supervisor, Ellen, who told me to wait until dark before assuming the worst. Maybe his radio died, or he'd twisted an ankle. But by 7 p.m., with no sign of him, Ellen called for a search. Me, her, and 2 other rangers, Mike and Sarah, grabbed flashlights, maps, and first aid kits and headed to Deer Hollow. The forest at night was eerie, pitch black, with only the crunch of our boots and the occasional owl hoot breaking the silence. We shouted Tom's name for hours, our voices echoing off the trees. Nothing. No tracks, no gear, no sign of him. It was like the forest had swallowed him whole. We searched for 3 days. Volunteers, local police, even a K-9 unit joined in. We combed every trail, checked ravines, and even dragged a small pond nearby. Nothing turned up. Not a boot, not a scrap of clothing. Tom was gone. The official report listed him as missing, presumed lost. Some thought he'd wandered off and gotten disoriented. Others whispered about bears or a fall. I didn't buy it. Tom knew Blackwood better than anyone. He wasn't the type to get lost. Life went on, but it wasn't the same. I kept patrolling, but every step in the forest felt heavier. I'd catch myself glancing over my shoulder, expecting to see Tom's grin or hear his voice on the radio. Then about 2 weeks later, on November 7th, something happened that still gives me chills. It was around 1 a.m. and I was alone in the ranger station, a small cabin with a wood stove and a desk cluttered with maps. I was finishing paperwork when my walkie-talkie crackled. At first, it was just static, like a distant storm. Then I heard a voice, faint, panicked, unmistakable. It was Tom. "Help, someone's chasing me. He's gonna kill me." His words were garbled, broken by static, but the fear in his voice was clear. "I'm in Deer Hollow. Please, hurry." Then the line went dead. I froze, my heart pounding. I grabbed the radio and called out to him, but there was no response. I didn't think twice. I called Ellen, who was skeptical but agreed to organize a search party. By 2 a.m., Mike, Sarah, and a couple of deputies were back in Deer Hollow, our flashlights cutting through the fog. The forest felt different that night, like it was watching us. The air was thick, and every snap of a twig made my skin crawl. We followed the trail Tom had been checking when he vanished. About a mile in, near a rocky outcrop, I spotted something glinting in the dirt. It was Tom's walkie-talkie, smashed to pieces, the antenna bent and the casing cracked. My stomach dropped. There was no way he'd left it like that on purpose. We searched the area for hours, calling his name, checking every shadow, but there was nothing. No footprints, no blood, no sign of a struggle, just the broken radio. The deputy said it was probably kids messing with us, picking up Tom's radio and playing a prank. But I knew Tom's voice. It was him, and he was terrified. We kept searching for days, but found nothing else. The case went cold again, and people stopped talking about it. But I couldn't let it go. Every night, I'd replay his voice in my head, wondering what he'd seen, who was chasing him. I worked in Blackwood for another year, but it was never the same. I'd avoid Deer Hollow when I could, and when I had to go there, I'd feel this heavy dread, like something was waiting. I left the Ranger service in 2013 and moved to a desk job in town. But I still dream about that night. The crackle of the radio, Tom's voice, the broken walkie-talkie in the dirt. I don't know what happened to him, but I know he didn't just get lost. Something was wrong. It happened on a Saturday night, about a year ago. I was 17 and my parents had gone to a dinner party downtown. It was just me and my little brother Josh. He was 9 at the time. We live on the outskirts of the city, in one of those small neighborhoods where houses are kind of far apart and the streetlights barely work. They left around 7. I made frozen pizza, and Josh and I were watching some cartoon reruns in the living room. Everything was normal, until it wasn't. At around 10 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Not the doorbell, a knock. And it wasn't loud, just a steady, dull knock. I thought maybe it was a neighbor, or maybe my parents forgot their key or something. I went to check through the peephole. There was a man standing there. He had a black hoodie on with the hood up, and he was holding a big brown paper bag like the ones delivery drivers use. He didn't look up, he just stared straight ahead. I didn't open the door. Instead, I asked through the door, "Can I help you?" He looked up. His eyes were kind of dead. No smile, no emotion. He just said, "Food delivery." "We didn't order anything," I said quickly. "It's already paid," he answered. I felt this cold drop in my stomach. Something was off. "Wrong house," I said, trying to sound firm. "We didn't order anything." He stood there a second longer, then turned and walked down the porch steps. He didn't go in a car, just walked down the street and out of view. I stood there frozen for maybe a full minute, then locked the door again, even though it already was, and checked the windows. I told Josh to go upstairs and stay in my room. I didn't want to scare him, so I just said I thought I saw someone weird outside. About 10 minutes passed. Then came another knock, but this one was softer, slower, like the person wasn't in a hurry. This time it was a woman. She looked about 30. Blonde hair, messy bun. She was wearing jeans and a light jacket, like she just got off work or something. She was breathing kind of hard, like she had been running. "Hi," she said, smiling weakly through the glass of the side window. "Sorry to bother you. My car broke down a little down the road. My phone's dead. Can I just use yours to call my husband?" She didn't look dangerous. In fact, she looked like the opposite. She looked tired, cold, maybe even scared. But then I noticed something. She kept glancing to her left, not in a normal way. Her eyes were darting. So I stepped to the side and looked through the front curtain, out toward the yard. That's when I saw him. The same man from earlier, still in the black hoodie, was now standing at the far end of our yard, behind the tree, motionless, just staring at the house. He wasn't looking at the woman. He was looking at the window I was behind, like he knew exactly where I was. I didn't open the door. I didn't say a word. I just backed away and ran upstairs. Josh was sitting on my bed with headphones on, watching something on my laptop. I whispered, "Get in the closet." Now, I didn't explain. I just helped him inside and shut the door. I went into the bathroom with my phone and locked the door behind me. I called 911. The dispatcher asked if they were trying to break in. I said no, not yet. But I told her everything, the fake delivery guy, the woman with the story, and the man now standing in the yard. She said to stay quiet, keep the doors locked, and officers would be there in less than 10 minutes. It was the longest 10 minutes of my life. I kept listening. No breaking glass, no sounds at all, just silence. When the police arrived, I heard them yelling outside. I looked from my bedroom window and saw flashlights moving around. The woman was gone, so was the guy in the hoodie. One officer talked to me while another checked the yard and the street. Apparently, we weren't the only ones. Another house about 6 blocks away had a similar thing happen just 20 minutes before us. Same fake food delivery, same woman asking to use the phone. Only difference? That time, someone opened the door. They didn't get hurt, but their house was broken into. The guy rushed in the moment they unlocked it, and the woman tried to hold the door open. The couple inside managed to fight back and call for help, but the 2 suspects ran before the police got there. The cops believed they were trying different houses, looking for people who were home alone, using fake stories to get them to unlock the door. They never caught them. But I think about it a lot. What if I had opened the door? What if Josh had answered it while I was in the bathroom or upstairs? It was the summer of 2018, and my best friend Jake and I were desperate for a break. College had been brutal. Endless assignments, late-night study sessions, and the constant grind of trying to keep our grades up while working part-time jobs. When Jake found a cheap cabin rental on a lake just a couple of hours from campus, it felt like a gift from the universe. The listing on Airbnb was basic, a tiny one-bedroom cabin on Lake Wister, Oklahoma, with a dock, a fire pit, and a low price because it was a last-minute cancellation. We didn't care that it was bare bones, we just wanted to fish and forget about school for a week. So we split the $200 cost, packed our bags, and hit the road in Jake's beat-up Honda Civic. The drive was uneventful, just us blasting music and joking about how we'd catch enough fish to never buy groceries again. Lake Wister was busy this time of year. July meant families, jet skis, and pontoon boats clogging the water. The cabin was tucked away on a quieter part of the lake, down a gravel road lined with pine trees. It was small, maybe 500 square feet, with weathered wood siding and a sagging front porch. The inside smelled like mildew and old wood, but it had a couch, a kitchenette, and a bedroom with 2 twin beds. A sliding glass door led to a back deck that overlooked the lake, and a rickety dock stretched out into the water. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours for the week. The first day was perfect. We got there around noon, unpacked our stuff, and spent the afternoon fishing off the dock. Jake caught a small bass, and we grilled it for dinner with some hot dogs we'd brought. The lake was alive with noise, kids screaming, boats humming, music drifting from nearby cabins. We cracked open a couple of Coors Lights, sat on the deck, and watched the sunset turn the water orange. It felt like freedom. That night, though, things started to feel off. We were both exhausted from the drive and the sun, so we crashed early, around 10 p.m. The bedroom was stuffy, so we left the sliding glass door cracked for some air, locking the screen door behind it. I fell asleep to the sound of crickets and the occasional splash of fish in the lake. Sometime after midnight, I woke up to a low, rumbling noise. It wasn't loud, but it was distinct, a boat engine idling somewhere close to the cabin. I lay there, half asleep, trying to figure out if I was imagining it. The lake was busy during the day, but at this hour, it seemed weird. I sat up in bed and glanced at Jake, who was snoring softly. The room was dark, except for a faint glow coming through the screen door. I got up, my bare feet cold on the wood floor, and crept toward the glass door. The engine noise was clearer now, low and steady, like someone was just sitting out there on the water. I peered through the screen, my eyes adjusting to the dark. The lake was pitch black, the moon hidden behind clouds, but I could make out the faint outline of our dock. Then I saw it, a beam of light, sharp and white, sweeping across the water. It moved slowly, like someone was holding a flashlight, scanning the shore. It hit our dock, lingered for a moment, then flicked off. My heart started pounding. I told myself it was probably just a late-night fisherman or someone checking their boat. But why the flashlight? And why so close to our dock? I stood there, frozen, waiting for the engine to fade away. After a few minutes it did, the sound growing distant until it was gone. I checked the screen door. It was still locked. I crawled back into bed, uneasy but too tired to overthink it. Maybe it was nothing. The next morning, I woke up to Jake making coffee in the kitchenette. The sun was streaming through the windows, and the lake was already buzzing with boats. I told him about the engine noise and the flashlight, but he just shrugged. "Probably some drunk guy fishing or messing around," he said, pouring coffee into a chipped mug. "People do weird stuff on lakes at night." I nodded, trying to brush it off. He was probably right. We decided to check out the dock and see if we could spot anything unusual. The morning air was warm, and the smell of lake water and pine filled my nose. The dock creaked under our weight as we walked out to the end. Everything looked normal, no signs of anyone messing with it. But when we turned to head back to the cabin, Jake stopped dead in his tracks. "Dude," he said, pointing at the ground near the back door. "What the hell is that?" There, in the soft dirt just off the deck, were footprints. They were big, maybe size 11 or 12, and they were caked with mud, like someone had walked straight out of the lake. The prints started at the water's edge, went up the slight incline to the deck, and stopped right at the back door. My stomach dropped. I followed the trail with my eyes, trying to make sense of it. The mud was still wet, glistening in the morning sun. Okay, that's creepy, Jake said, his voice quieter now. Did you check the door last night? Yeah, it was locked, I said, my mouth dry. The screen was locked too. We checked the sliding glass door and the screen. Both were still locked, no signs of tampering. But then I noticed something else. The spare key, the one the Airbnb host had left under a flower pot on the deck for emergencies, was gone. I lifted the pot, expecting to see the little silver key sitting there like it was when we arrived. Nothing, just dirt. Maybe it fell or something, Jake said, but he didn't sound convinced. We searched the deck, under the furniture, even in the grass around the cabin. No key. I felt a chill despite the July heat. Someone had been here, right outside our door, while we were sleeping. We tried to shake it off and go about our day. We fished, swam, and even took a walk along the lake's edge to check out the other cabins. Most of them were bigger, with families or groups of friends laughing and grilling. Our little cabin felt isolated in comparison, set back from the main cluster of rentals. I kept glancing at the footprints, which were drying out in the sun. By afternoon they were barely visible, but I couldn't stop thinking about them. That night, we were both on edge. We double-checked every lock, front door, back door, screen, even the windows. Jake suggested we leave the porch light on, and I agreed. We didn't talk about it much, but I could tell he was as spooked as I was. We stayed up later than the night before, playing cards and trying to act normal. Around 11 p.m., we heard it again, the low rumble of a boat engine. This time, Jake heard it too. We froze, listening as the sound grew closer, then stopped, just like the night before. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, shining it through the screen door. The beam wasn't strong enough to reach the water, but I could see the dock clearly. Nothing. No light, no movement. The engine idled for a few more seconds, then cut off. Silence. We waited, barely breathing, but nothing happened. No flashlight, no footsteps. Eventually, we went to bed, but I barely slept. Every creak of the cabin made me jump. The next morning, we checked the deck again. No new footprints, no signs of anything disturbed. The spare key was still missing. Jake was starting to get paranoid, talking about how maybe someone was watching the cabin, waiting for us to leave so they could break in. I didn't want to believe it, but the thought was creeping into my head too. We decided to call the Airbnb host, a guy named Mike who lived about 30 minutes away. He sounded annoyed when we told him about the key and the footprints. Probably just kids messing around, he said. Happens sometimes on the lake. People get drunk, wander onto other people's docks. I'll bring you a new key tomorrow. His explanation made sense, but it didn't make me feel better. That day, we stuck close to the cabin, keeping an eye on the water. Every boat that passed made my heart race. I started noticing things I hadn't before, like how the trees around the cabin blocked the view from the road, or how there were no security cameras anywhere. The closest neighbor was a good 200 yards away, and their cabin was empty half the time. That night, we decided to stay up and keep watch. We turned off all the lights inside so we could see out without being seen. We sat on the couch, facing the glass door, with a baseball bat Jake had found in the closet. The hours dragged on, the lake quiet except for the occasional frog or owl. Around 1 a.m., it happened again, the boat engine. This time it was louder, closer. I gripped the bat, my palms sweaty. Jake leaned forward, squinting into the dark. There, he whispered, pointing. A faint light flickered on the water, maybe 50 feet from the dock. It wasn't a flashlight this time. It looked like the glow of a phone screen reflecting off the lake. It bobbed slightly, like someone was sitting in a boat looking at their phone. Then it went out, and the engine revved, moving away. We didn't sleep at all that night. By morning, we were exhausted and jumpy. We checked the deck again. No footprints, no missing items. But something felt wrong, like the air itself was heavier. Jake wanted to leave, but I convinced him to stay one more night. We'd paid for the week, and I didn't want to let some creep ruin our trip. Plus, Mike was supposed to bring the new key that afternoon. Mike showed up around 3 p.m., a middle-aged guy in a flannel shirt and a baseball cap. He handed us a new key and apologized for the trouble. When we told him about the boat and the light, he frowned. "Sounds like poachers," he said. "Sometimes people sneak onto the lake at night to fish without a permit. They'll scope out docks to see if anyone's watching. Just keep your doors locked, and you'll be fine. Poachers." It sounded plausible, but it didn't explain the footprints or the missing key. After Mike left, we decided to set a trap. We tied a piece of fishing line across the steps leading up to the deck, low enough that someone wouldn't notice it in the dark. If anyone came up from the water, they'd trip and we'd hear it. We also moved the couch to block the sliding door, just in case. That night, we sat in the dark again, waiting. The lake was quieter than usual, the air thick with humidity. Around 2 a.m., we heard the engine. It was unmistakable now, a low growl that seemed to vibrate through the cabin. I grabbed the bat, my heart hammering. Jake was at the window, peering out. "I see it," he hissed. "It's right by the dock." I joined him, squinting into the darkness. The moon was out tonight, casting a faint glow over the water. There was a small boat, maybe 15 feet long, sitting just beyond the dock. No lights, no movement, just a dark shape bobbing on the water. Then we heard it, a soft splash like someone stepping into the lake. My blood ran cold. Jake grabbed my arm, his eyes wide, the fishing line. We waited, listening for the snap of it breaking. Nothing, no footsteps, no creaking on the dock. Just silence. The boat's engine started again, and we watched as it glided away, disappearing into the dark. We stayed up until dawn, but no one came. The next morning, we packed our bags. We didn't care about the money or the rest of the week. Something was wrong with this place, and we weren't sticking around to find out what. As we loaded the car, I noticed something on the dock, a small wet pile of lake weeds like someone had pulled them up and left them there. I didn't say anything to Jake, I just wanted to leave. We drove back to campus in silence, the lake fading into the distance. When we got home, I checked the Airbnb listing. It was gone. I tried texting Mike, but the number was disconnected. A week later, I saw a news article about Lake Wister. A body had been found in the water, tangled in fishing nets. The police called it an accident, but I couldn't shake the image of that boat, that light, those footprints leading to our door. I don't know who was out there or what they wanted. Maybe it was poachers, like Mike said. Maybe it was something else. All I know is that I'll never go back to that lake, and I'll never rent a cabin again. I'm 14, and my name's Sophia. It was a Friday night in October, and my parents were out for their monthly date night. They'd left me alone at home before, so I wasn't worried. Our house is in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind where everyone knows each other and nothing ever happens. At least that's what I thought. It was around 7 p.m., and the sky was already dark. I was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through my phone, watching dumb TikToks. The TV was on, playing some random Netflix show I wasn't really paying attention to. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of the old wooden floors. My parents had left me a pizza in the oven, and I was waiting for it to cool down. They said they'd be back by 10, so I had the place to myself for a few hours. I was texting my friend Emma about some drama at school when I heard a noise outside. It was faint, like a twig snapping. Our backyard has this big oak tree, and sometimes squirrels or stray cats mess around out there, so I didn't think much of it. But then I heard it again, louder this time, like something heavy stepping on the gravel path by the back door. My stomach did a little flip, but I told myself it was nothing. I muted the TV and listened. Silence. I laughed at myself for being paranoid and turned the volume back up. A few minutes later, I got up to grab a slice of pizza from the kitchen. The back door has a small window, and as I passed it, I glanced outside. The porch light was off, which was weird because it's motion activated. I figured the bulb must have died. But then I saw something. A shadow moving near the edge of the yard where the light from the neighbor's house barely reached. It looked like a person, tall and lanky, just standing there. My heart started pounding. I froze, staring, waiting for it to move. It didn't. Maybe it was just a bush or something, I thought, trying to calm myself down. I grabbed my pizza and hurried back to the living room, locking the kitchen door behind me. I sat on the couch, pulling my knees up to my chest, and tried to focus on my phone. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I kept glancing at the windows, expecting to see someone peeking in. The curtains were open, and the darkness outside felt like it was pressing against the glass. I got up and closed every curtain in the house, double-checking the front door lock. By 8 p.m. I was jumpy. Every little sound, the furnace kicking on, the wind rattling the shutters, made me flinch. I texted my mom asking when they'd be home, but she didn't reply. She's terrible at checking her phone when she's out. I tried to distract myself by watching a comedy show, but I kept pausing it to listen. That's when I heard the knock. It was soft at first, coming from the back door. 3 slow taps. My whole body went cold. I sat there, gripping my phone, waiting to hear it again. Maybe it was a neighbor, but who knocks like that at night? I crept to the kitchen, keeping the lights off so no one could see me through the window. I peeked through the little gap in the door's curtain. Nothing. Just darkness. I was about to turn away when I heard it again. 3 slow knocks, but this time from the front door. I ran to the living room, my socks sliding on the hardwood. My heart was racing so fast I could hear it in my ears. I grabbed the house phone and dialed 911, but didn't press call yet. I didn't want to look like an idiot if it was nothing. I tiptoed to the front window and peeked through a tiny slit in the curtains. A man was standing on the porch. He was tall, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans. His face was shadowed, but I could tell he was looking right at the door. He raised his hand and knocked again, harder this time. I ducked down, my hands shaking. I pressed call on the phone and whispered to the operator that someone was at my house and I was home alone. She told me to stay calm, lock myself in a room, and wait for the police. I grabbed a kitchen knife and ran to my parents' bedroom, locking the door and shoving a chair under the handle. I hid in the closet, clutching the knife and phone, trying not to cry. That's when I heard the back door rattle, like someone was trying the handle. Then a loud bang, like they kicked it. I whispered to the operator, begging her to hurry. She said the police were 5 minutes away. 5 minutes felt like forever. The banging stopped, and I heard footsteps crunching outside, circling the house. I could see his shadow pass by the bedroom window, slow and deliberate, like he was looking for a way in. I don't know how long I sat there, curled up in the dark, listening to every sound. Finally, I heard sirens. The footsteps stopped, and I saw blue and red lights flashing through the window. The police searched the yard and found footprints in the dirt by the back door, but the man was gone. They stayed until my parents got home, and I've never been so happy to see them. The police never caught the guy. They said it was probably someone looking for an easy break-in, but I still can't sleep without checking the locks 1,000,000 times. Every creak in the house makes me think he's back. I don't know what he wanted, but I'll never forget the way his shadow moved, like he knew I was watching.
There it is. We made it to the end. For those who made it all the way through, thank you. I appreciate it. And for those who didn't and who couldn't, scary ass.